Hey, what's up? My name's JM Chaley and welcome to my channel. This time I want to talk about giving stuff away, when to do it, when not to do it, how often you should do it. What am I talking about? I'm talking about disseminating information about your main character or characters or your setting or your world over the course of your story. We all know that info dumping is bad, right? We don't want to front load a bunch of world building and talk about stuff that's going on in another part of the world that's not even relevant to the story and do all this exposition and crazy stuff. Nobody wants that. And we know that's not something that we're supposed to do. What I'm talking about is revealing stuff about your characters only when it's time to reveal it. Now, I did a recent video on hooking your readers with the first scene and making characters interesting. So you have to give them something out of the gate in that very first scene, but you don't have to give everything. So I'm going to give you an example as much as I can because the lid on this is still pretty tight. I started working on a new story recently. I can't tell you much about it only because it's not something that I'm free to talk about yet. I'm going to end up querying on it actually. It's not a self-publishing. It's not on the self-publishing track for now. It's not a Lisa Cooper story. But and oh, by the way, the new Lisa Cooper book will be coming out in October. I was shooting for the summer, but it's going to be coming out in October. The sequel to The Unlife of Lisa Cooper will be coming out in October. Anyway, I started working on this new project, and there are a number of characters in this story that are supernatural in all different ways. And what I didn't want to do is, because it's more than one character in this particular scene, I didn't want to kind of go around the room and go, oh, there's Fred. Fred's a werewolf. Oh, and I'm sitting across the table from Steve, and Steve is a vampire, right? These aren't the names of those characters. That's not what anyone is, but that's an example, right? I didn't want to just dump this information. I wanted to do it naturally, because if I'm thinking from the POV of the character that I'm writing in the moment, in that very first scene, they're not thinking about who their friends are and what they are. They're just living in that moment and having, eating some food, drinking some wine maybe, right? They're not thinking about, oh, Brenda is a mermaid, right? Nope, we're not thinking about that, because that's not something that would be on their mind in that moment. So what ends up happening in that first scene is I have to show what's interesting a little bit. So they start talking about stuff that's giving a clue to the reader that these people are not mortal or human, right? But I'm not giving them everything. I'm not saying what people are exactly. I'm just letting them know these people are more than human. And hopefully that's enough to satisfy that checkbox where I say make them interesting in that first scene, right? Then the inciting incident happens, and I show them a little bit more, because now these supernatural beings flex their powers a little bit during this inciting incident, and I can show a little bit about what they are, and the readers can kind of go, oh, that's what so and so is. But I still don't show everything. I hold on to a little bit. And I like that, being able to reveal a little bit at a time. The story not forcing me to give everything away all at once. That's a good problem to have. And at first when I first started writing it, I'm thinking, geez, how am I going to get this information out there? I want the readers to know what they are and get excited about, ooh, there's one of these and one of these and one of these. And I quickly realized, oh, no. I want to tease them with the mystery. What are they? Where did they come from? How did they get here? Why are they hanging around together? All this kind of stuff I didn't want to dump. It wasn't a problem that I had to solve. I'm like, ooh, this isn't a problem I have to solve. This is information I have to tease. And that made the writing so much more fun for me. And it's going to make it a lot more interesting to read. So I have three basic things to kind of go over when you're talking about intentionally withholding information from a reader to build that suspense, to build that curiosity with the promise of a payoff. You're going to get the information. It's just a matter of when, and when the delivery will be the best. So let's get into those three little tips. So the first one is it relevant to the story? In other words, am I showing it at a time when it needs to be shown? Am I showing it too soon? Right? I didn't need to show that someone was a leprechaun when everyone's just drinking wine and eating cheese at a lunch party, whatever. I don't know. I'm not giving you what's really happening in the story. I'm just making it up, right? Right? I don't need to say, oh, so-and-so's a leprechaun, or show they're a leprechaun, or whip out, a pot of gold or a rainbow or anything. Nope, I didn't have to do that until it was time. The inciting incident. When someone says, oh my God, we need a leprechaun. Making this up, right? Then we show it when it's time. Am I giving this information at the right time? The other piece of it is, am I showing this information? Am I showing this at a time when it's going to be at the greatest impact? So I could write in a scene where someone just casually offhand mentions, yeah, me and the other golems were down hanging out at the golem party, and we were doing all this golem stuff at the golem store, and you realize, oh, this person's a golem, right? Or I could show that there's a golem among the group and reveal that they're a golem in the most impactful way, like during an inciting incident or some emotional, scene or something like that, right? A catalyst of emotion that brings out this reveal, right? Gollum would be a horrible example because I feel like they'd be walking around going, what? No, I'm just a regular, whatever. But you know what I'm getting. I'm trying to come up with supernatural creatures as examples without giving away what I'm actually working on. And then the last thing is there a reason, is there a logical reason, a sound reason why I'm withholding this information from you? Right? Like, and I'm going to give another example. We find out in Star Wars, the very first Star Wars movie that came out in 1977, that Obi-Wan Kenobi has some sort of powers. Maybe he's a Jedi. We don't know what that is. We're watching this in 1977. We have no idea really what a Jedi can do. He's just like, yeah, I was a Jedi. And the Force, it's this power and whatever. And we're like, okay, we have no idea. And then the cantina scene comes, right? And they don't really show this, but they imply that when those ruffians push Luke aside and Obi-Wan pulls out his lightsaber, they don't show it, but they kind of imply that he's blocking the blaster bolts with his lightsaber. There's 2 shots fired. They don't show what happens. They show his lightsaber swing a little bit, and then the next thing you know, there's an arm on the floor. That's him using his abilities, what makes the Jedi special. That's revealed, that's given to us in the right moment. He doesn't talk about it too soon, right? In his little hut, right? He's not telling Luke, oh, by the way, Jedi can block blaster bolts and, cut people's arms off with these lightsabers here. No, he's not, but it's shown at the right time. We're also not, George Lucas didn't delay in showing us that. In other words, he didn't have a scene where Obi-Wan pushed Luke out of the way and then took the hit, the blaster bolt himself. Like maybe he got hit in the shoulder. He's like, ah. And then later on in the movie, we show him blocking blaster bolts. And we'd be like, wait a minute. Why didn't he use that power in the cantina? If he could have done that then, right? So when it's time to show the power. Don't withhold it unless there's a really good reason why you can't show it at that time. right? I hope you followed that example because it felt a little clunky with the Star Wars stuff. But show it when it's time to show it, when it's the best impact for it. And if you're gonna withhold it and tease that mystery a little longer, make sure you can hold it longer without kind of betraying the nature of your character. You know, would your character reveal this stuff earlier on? No? Then okay, you can hold on to it. But be careful about that. All right, so that about wraps it up. You know, keeping these mysteries, you have these interesting characters. We're writing fantasy fiction, right? You have these supernatural beings, these characters that have special powers, or they will have special powers. You don't want to give everything away all at once. You don't have to give everything away all at once. You can tease a little bit here, a little bit there, you know? And I think that's going to maximize the interest and the suspense of everything. And when you pay those things off along the way as you go, that's beautiful, because all along you have these little mystery, payoff, little mystery, payoff, right? As you go. You know, and these aren't the big story beats or anything like that with these huge payoffs, but they're like little breadcrumbs that keep your readers turning pages and going, ooh, I want to know more. What else can they do? What are they? How did they get here, right? All these questions. And then you slowly start paying them off, right? As you're delivering the story, because they're also going to care about all this external stuff that's happening to them too. Who's the big bad? What's the mystery over here? What are they going to face, right? And all along, well, what even are they, right? Or whatever your story is. So, yes, that about wraps it up. If you like this video, please smush that like button. And as always, please subscribe. You can follow me on a plethora of social media platforms. I'm mostly active on Threads, Blue Sky, and Facebook these days. All my links are in the description. Check out jmchaley.com. There's a list of all my appearances. And you can sign up for my newsletter. You can send me a message and say hello. I'm really good at responding back. What else? I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.